Thank you. Welcome, Brent.
Good evening all. Thanks everyone for joining. Tonight I'm going to tie a couple more of my brim patterns. There's a couple that I've already tied, which the links would be up on the YouTube channel, I believe Stephen's done. Yep. So the first one tonight I'll tie is a little fly called a Bream Bugger. Not so little, I suppose, compared to a lot of the woolly buggers that we use for trout. Similar sort of proportion, I suppose. So that's the fly there finished. So we'll start off with the material that just went through. The hook that I use for this one's a Gamakatsu L11 S11 2L in a size 6. And on that, we're going to use a 4mm black tungsten bead, which we'll place on the hook first. You want an old school tungsten bead so that you can actually get it on the hook. A lot of modern, slotted beads you won't actually get on this style of hook because they're too small in the gape. So thread, I'm going to use 60 uni in black or a 140 in a UTC. We'll do the same sort of thing. So to start with, we're going to run a bead of thread along the shank of the hook towards the tail. Now we're going to take some olive marabou and we're going to take the marabou off the side, same as what we're doing if we're doing a shrek. We're not going to use the tip of the marabou. It's got no life in it whatsoever. So we want to use the marabou off the side so that we've got plenty of movement in the fly. I'm going to take a decent chunk of that, tear it off, and then just trim off the ends and tie that onto top of the shank of the hook. So we want the tail to be about the length, or about slightly longer than the length of the shank of the hook. So all we do is pull that back and pinch it off. Gives you a nice fluffy tail with lots of movement in there. I'll just wait for people to catch up if they're tying along.
Yeah, I'm just getting the tail material out, mate. So.
Yell out if you need me to stop or go back, but we can tie them again. So, as you can see, by not using the tips, you can see that the marabou is just moving around with me moving my hand, and then whereas if you're just tying the tips, you're going to have no movement in the marabou just by using the tips. How's everybody going?
Yeah, I'm a bit behind, but we'll keep going. I'll catch up.
All right, I'll keep going. We can try again. So, that's Simon at the pull again. Next, we're going to dub some UV shrimp blend, 2/3 of the way along towards the bead. You can either dub it straight onto the thread, do a dubbing loop. You could spin it into a brush if you like doing that. I just find it just as easy to dub it on with my fingers as I go. You want to dub this on fairly thick. The body's going to be about as thick as what your bead is that you're using, which is a 4mm tungsten bead. So just dub it on loose. Then we're just going to build the body as we go along. And you want it to keep nice and rough because we're going to Velcro it all out again in a moment. When we're getting up towards the eye, what we want to work out is leave enough room. We're going to put chenille on the front, in front of the bead. Not enough room to do about 2 turns of medium chenille in front of that. So to finish this section off, actually wind your thread and pull the bead towards the eye of the hook. Then just tie it off loosely there. Another reason why you want a big bead to go over, so that when we cut this off, you can actually push the bead back over your thread. That'll secure that in place. And we're going to tie the thread back in front of the bead. So just let people catch up a little bit before I continue on. How's everyone going?
Yeah.
Yep.
Next, we're going to use one or two, depending on what you've got, but just a soft webby hen feather, quite a large. If you're doing it off a hackle gauge, you're probably looking at a size 6 to 4 hackle. You're going to take one of those, and you want to leave all the webby stuff on the bottom. Leave it on there because you're going to wind that round. We're going to make a collar that just cloaks over the top of the bead. I'll tie that in front of the bead. If you've got a long feather, you don't need to use hackle pliers, or use hackle pliers to hold it if it's a shorter one. And we're going to start winding that forward, pulling it back as we go. Got a nice coverage there. Tie him off.
That's in front of the bead, is it, Brett?
In front of the bead. And then what we're going to do is grab the fibres and just wind the thread back over and back to the bead, so that all we're doing is creating that cloak so we can't see the bead.
Yeah.
We see it a little bit, but it's basically, most people that's seen the fly don't realise there's a bead underneath there. How's everyone going with the hackle?
Nearly there.
That's just the end piece soft hackle, is that right?
Yeah, just any olive soft hackle you've got, just a soft and webby hackle, quite a large one. How are we all going with the hackle?
Nearly there.
Oh, that's right.
I think mine's wide enough. I might get another one. Keep going though. That's good.
Keep going. Next, I'm going to use some red rayon chenille. Rayon chenille, important for this fly, how it actually looks in the water when it gets wet. And ideally, you want a rayon chenille that's actually got a red core. If you've got a lot of rayon chenilles are made on a black core, it'll send this black looking in the water as opposed to bright red. So red core. Chenille's also wound on in a direction. So one end will be harder to pull off the fibres to start, whereas the other one where it lays back, if you grab either end of it, you can pull it out, you'll get a nice little end to start, make it easier to tie on. What we're going to do is tie that in front of the hackle, just catching the ends, secure it down, bring your thread to the hook of the eye. And then we're going to make, all we're doing is making a neat little head. So about 2 turns in front of the hackle, then just catch that chenille with your thread. And trim him off. Just a picture that you're trying to make an oversized, basically an oversized bead with the chenille. And that's the fly. Finish him off. However you like to finish it off, with your whip finish or hand finish. last step to build the fly is take a dubbing teaser, Velcro, and we're going to brush the fibres and the hackle forward in the body. And we're going to pull it back, and that'll just make a nice cloak. That's one over it. And by using that dubbing, you'll see that, I don't know if I'm showing up that well in that light, but you'll see that the fibres, like the UV fibres, light up inside the dubbing. But if you've got a UV light there, you'll see it very clearly. So this little soft head on the front of the fly goes really translucent red. It looks almost like jelly in the water when it gets wet. By moving the bead back, it actually enables it to sit almost level in the water, as opposed to taking a nosedive with the fly where we've got a tungsten bead right on the head.
Brilliant.
How we all going getting the chenille on the front.
Quite a bit of a disaster, so I'm going back to the hackle. It's all right.
It takes a little bit of getting used. It's only 2 wraps, but just getting used to doing that takes a little bit of a trick. Using the red chenille idea came from Jason Garrett heading off to, I think, the Commonwealth or the Oceanic Games in New Zealand last year or the year before. And there was a fly they used over there, a woolly bugger, that didn't have any weight, just a soft red head like that. So that's where I got the idea of using that type of material for the head.
I'm struggling, mate.
The struggle is real.
My struggle is real.
Have you got rayon chenille?
Yeah, I have. It's just I didn't leave enough room in front, so
Enough room.
yeah. But that's all right. I think I can get it now.
That's because you crapped fly tie. That's why.
Where's yours, Aspro? Before you start being disparate with your remarks, mate. I haven't seen you tie anything yet.
Waiting for you to tie them for him.
Yeah, I think so. I might have to leave that chenille. I'll have to do that one again, I think.
Start again. We can tie another one now so everyone can go through the steps again.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We can do that. So I can start on another one. So that's, the finished fly. It's quite simple, quite easy to tie once you work out those spaces with the chenille. You could probably always leave more space on the front than less to give yourself a little bit more room to work.
And while you're tying this one, you can tell us how you fish it, mate.
Yeah, so this one come about because I've hot spots and stuff in flies, and some days when you're chasing bream, particularly in the dark, they will follow and they will follow and they will follow and they'll follow the flies without any sort of commitment. So trying different hot spots and how flies sit in the water, and after playing around tying a similar type of fly for the guys heading away for the championships, got me thinking about how that red looked like jelly in the water, more natural than an actual tungsten bead or fluoro dumbbell eyes. It looks way more natural in the water. So, and it's not colour I normally associate with bream fishing, but it's been, been really, really effective for a searching pattern, or when I've found bream that are not taking normal patterns, I've switched over to this, casting it out, letting it sink to the desired depth. It sinks quite well, slim profile with the tungsten bead, and then just very slow strip, pause, retrieve has been the most effective. Again, tying in a tail on top of the hook. If you've got any questions, they should yell out or ask anything as we're going now. How did everybody else go with the Chanel head?
Yeah, got them on there.
Got it on all right? We had to try this fly up the lakes, but I think it'll be deadly on trout early season as well.
It does swim very well in the water, I'll say.
Oh, you fished it, Paul? Was that you, Paul?
No, that's Elliot. I fished it a lot over the weekend. I think it's great. Casts very well. It swims perfectly. It's very level in the water. It's a good fly.
My brim fishing started off throwing normal woolly buggers, although be it quite long woolly buggers with very heavy tungsten beads. I suppose they more represented a worm fly than an actual woolly bugger. But I've since found that style of fly not as effective as flies that swim upside down or different positions in the water.
Yeah, I think I was using ones that were a bit too heavy and sinking a bit too quickly, but the ones that sort of stay, right where they are and just move a little bit, sort of are better.
It's a fine line, I find, with the brim. If you're not on the bottom a lot of the time, you're not going to catch them, but it's always that fine line between being on the bottom and, snagging up all the time.
Yeah.
The one's just chock-a-block full of, it's a rocky bottom, so it's very difficult from that point of view to fish.
Lost a few.
I use a fairly thick dub through the body, Brent.
You want the body to work out about the size of the 4mm bead that you use.
Yeah.
The tail running up to the bead, where you're gonna leave the bead. And if you're having trouble with leaving enough room for the head, leave more room. You can always leave a little bit of room at the front where you tie off than sort of overcrowding it. I think the original one, I didn't even have any hackle on it at all, but it looks better, but a bit more movement with that soft hackle in the middle than nothing at all, than just the dubbing being teased out.
Jesus, that's hot.
That was
How many turns of hackle would you put through, Brent?
What's that? Sorry.
How many turns of hackle are you putting through?
It's still enough to really a small. If you're using a soft feather, just wind the whole thing on. They're not very long.
Yeah.
So it could be 4 turns, it could be 6. Just wind the whole feather on. They're not being a hackle. You're never going to get one probably much longer than a couple of inches at the most anyway. You're only going to get half turns. You're just putting enough on to cloak the bead.
Yeah.
It gives a little bit. When you tease everything out, it just teases it into the fibres and makes the body appear bigger and more translucent.
Yeah.
Too long a hackle on that time. Not too bad again.
Too long's not a problem.
Is that right? No.
Prefer to have longer hackle than too short. The hackle could be as long if it goes all the way back to the bend of the hook. Fine when it's laying back.
No, certainly doing that.
It's a good way to use up a lot of those feathers that are too big for, say, Shreks and that type of stuff.
Yeah, particularly the back, those big grizzle hackle at
Yep.
the back. Yeah.
I like for that. For
Sorry.
this fly.
Yeah.
Just curious, I'm not tying them right now, but so that Chanel is actually the stuff that's shining under the UV light. Is that correct?
No, it's in the dubbing. I don't. Can you see that on the camera?
I sure can. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually UV fibers in the dubbing.
Right. Okay.
So it's a bit hard to get on that camera, but yeah, it's
Yeah, I can see it.
it lights up through the dubbing. So
Yeah, they showed that to me when I bought it actually at the store as well.
I've played around. That dubbing comes with UV and without UV, but the UV's definitely been a lot better for that fly. I suppose it just, whether they see it or not, we don't know, I suppose, really. But
Yeah.
some days UV certainly helps out
Mm-hmm.
with the hookup rate.